you're thinking like I'm 4-5, I'm 5-4. Do I have what it takes to actually beat the top 3 teams? And you just have to really analyze your roster, and you have to think, is it worth it to send draft capital to try to win now? But then you have to look and go, even if I obtain this player, it's still not good enough. So we're going to look at some rosters. I think Justin has 3 prepared for me and for him to talk about. And you want to get right into the first one?
Yep. So I have this built out. I've sent you their entire roster, but we don't need to know that they have some really shitty wide receiver out there. So I've included their key player assets on their teams, and we're just going to talk about them. Like I said, we got their draft capital and stuff like that up there as well. So this team is not doing great. This is one of those league median teams. So they are 9-9, but if you go back and look at their record, they're actually 3-6. This is a 12-team PPR super flex, and they're right there in the middle of the pack. Currently, they're in the playoffs in 6th place, but they could just as easily be not in the playoffs with one more loss. They are scoring a good amount of points, 5th in points, but they're also getting scored on the most in the entire league, which is where you see that 9-9 record. So they have Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones, which who knows about what he's going to end up doing on the Giants. Jordan Love started off great, not doing so great. Zach Wilson, maybe the future of the Jets. We don't know. Probably not. Running back, you're going to see Tony Pollard on these lists a lot. And it's really sad because people invested RB1 capital into him, and he's not RB1. He's like a flex player. So you got Pollard, Jacobs, AJ Dillon, JK Dobbs. Running back room's not looking great. Jamar Chase, this is a big one. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Zay Flowers, Zay Jones, TJ Hawkinson, Jake Ferguson. So you got a good tight end room. You got some decent wide receivers. You got a really shit running back room, to be honest. And you got okay quarterbacks.
He has
not a lot of draft capital either.
This person has a core, but no draft capital. And like you said, the running back room is atrocious right now, only because you have to think that running back room, they're only getting older, Josh Jacobs and Pollard especially.
Yep.
But I understand why. I understand why they thought they had a chance in the beginning, because look at this team. It's pretty stacked, right? You think Trevor Lawrence is going to be make that push to be a top 5 quarterback. You think Daniel Jones is going to progress after last season. And then you think Jordan Love is going to finally have a shot, and Green Bay just doesn't miss on quarterbacks. And then the other room, we all thought, most of you thought Pollard was going to be something this year.
Say, we all heard you 2 days ago.
Hey, I do want to bring this up. March 25th at 9:37 a.m. in the offseason, I traded Tony Pollard away, and I got Kyle Pitts in return. I saw the writing on the wall. I like to get out of these running backs right after they, get to the age of 26, 27. I want to get away from them. I did. This person thought differently because he had a win now team. At least he thought he did. But that's just not the case. You have to, I don't want to say blow this team up, because you can't, but you could tinker. Now, what I would do if I had this team, I would try to find either the lowest of the low teams that you can probably find and go, hey, you need help. Daniel Jones is going to be back next year. You need a tight end, so maybe throw him a Ferguson because he's young, because you have Hawk. You're fine with Hawk for the next 5 years. You're fine.
Yeah.
And maybe get some draft capital back. You're probably not going to get there first, obviously, because that's a big pick, especially in super flex leagues. But try to get some pieces that may help you in the future, because your team's there. Your team may be there next season, but it's not here this season because you're too many injuries and you're not deep enough. You're just not. Jones and Love have been a huge disappointment on this team. You just need to analyze it and go, because you can sell Dobbins, you can sell Jones, you can even sell a Ferguson for a win now player. But is it worth it? Do you have the ability to take down the top 3 teams? Probably not. And we need that in context, because that's important too. I have a team right now currently where I'm the 4th best team, but Dirtbag Dave is the best team by far, just like in Shit Show with you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth it to try to beat that team and not come close, or is it worth it just to get value? And here, this team, I would like to try to get value anywhere I can.
Yeah, so this one I'm I'm gonna lean more towards the I'm trying to get draft capital here for the future as well. And you could get that very easily on this roster, I think. I mean, if you decide I'm gonna package Jamar Chase out there, and maybe you can get 2 first rounders. Maybe. I mean, with his injury history this year, I would account that. But like you said, you're so close to actually like breaking out. All you need is maybe a running back here, another quarterback here, and you're fine. So yeah, look at your depth. Is Ferguson worth trading out there? Is Hawkinson worth trading out to get a first round pick? Because you have Ferguson, who's going to last longer. Um, I if I had to get rid of one of these guys, yeah, I'd be looking at your tight end room because you have two very good tight ends that could service you. Yes, we know Hawkinson is Hawkinson. He's going to do well. Ferguson is still a rookie. Who knows what he actually ends up being? But Ferguson's proven to be doing really well. So you could get some draft capital out of Hawkinson with a fourth round pick only this year. That's going to be really tough to build up next year. And you're only going to be looking at it going down at this point. So I would be looking at maybe moving Hawk for a first or second.
Yeah, I don't mind that move at all. But here's what I see, and I don't know if we build teams differently. I can tell. You know, I played in many leagues with you, and you can probably tell how I like to build my dynasty teams. I go wide receiver heavy at first.
Mm-hmm.
So Chase, Amon Ra, and Zay Flowers. I like to have 4 solid, strong guys.
Yeah, you have to.
So you have Chase. I would not move him for anything. I'm sorry. I mean, everyone has a price, but to move him, I want to get this out there to a lot of people because a lot of people I've played with so many people who just the next guy, the next draft class is better.
Yeah.
You know, the next, hey, I can trade Chase and I can get Marvin Harrison Jr. I can get this guy. I can get this guy. Guys, if you have a stud, why are we chasing first anymore? We have the stud.
Yeah, the only reason why I'd move on from Jamar is if you're getting 2 or 3 first round picks or like 2 first and a second in this year's draft class. I wouldn't be looking for future stuff. You want to move that quickly because you have a team that can compete. You just need the little oomph there.
Yeah.
So would you consider this to be a rebuild or a retool to get up to the top 3?
This is a retool. You definitely need to solidify that wide receiver room, get that 4th strong player. Because Zay Flowers, he's not really proven he is a PPR guy. You want to get because I'm on Rollins and Chase. They're money. They're top 10 guys. If you can just solidify and get one more, I was gonna if this was my team. Final word on this one. If this was my team, I would trade Ferguson because dynasty players love youth. People are already calling CJ Stroud a top 5 guy in dynasty. That's just not true. I'm sorry. He's like only 3 years younger than Burrow. It's just we're really picking nits, and people do value age so much in dynasty, and that's a huge mistake. So I would,
and yeah, especially at the quarterback position when players can play till they're like 40. So,
and I was gonna say with Ferguson, with Jacobs, because Jacobs isn't winning you anything this year, and definitely not next year. He's a player I try to move and package those 2 players for a solid wide receiver option. I can't give you one, but you're not going to get obviously Jefferson. You're not going to get, you don't want to go after an Adams. You don't want to go after a Diggs. But if you can go after one of oh man, like even Ferguson for Puka, throw it out there. Ferguson and Daniel Jones for Puka. Throw it out there. Why not? Why not? We've seen Puka have value. We've seen him be a very good player. Now they're getting Carson Wentz,
you can
and
buy him really low right now too because he's not doing very well.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, just try to. What would you do with Jacobs? That's what I want to ask. What would you do with Josh Jacobs on this roster?
I mean, running back position is your weakest, and Jacobs is probably going to be your most valuable asset there. I would also be trying to move Jacobs for whatever you can. You're going to have to package him to get any kind of value out of him because right now he's probably a late second, 3rd round pick, maybe. You're not getting a first out of Josh Jacobs anymore, especially being on the Raiders. Not being on the Raiders. Maybe this offseason. Maybe you wait until the offseason and see if he does go somewhere else after he probably ends up walking from the Raiders, unless they franchise tag him again.
You could probably trade Jacobs for Puka.
Straight up.
Or so, you probably could. And I would. On this roster, I would.
I would be going to a team that hopefully the Puka owner has no running backs.
Or that's true. That's what you gotta do. Dave would tell you the same thing. Look at team 1, look at team 2, look at team 3. Who has an
Yeah.
injured player? Who has an injured running back? Who needs running back help? And go attack.
Yeah. I mean, now I want to know who has Puka.
Is this your
league.
team?
This is not my team.
Is this whole podcast here to just help you out? Are we just like giving you advice? Hey, I gotta go look who has Puka.
No, I gotta help out my friends, man. I gotta help out my friends.
Well, hopefully they're watching and hopefully they're subscribing.
You see, I'm gonna start clipping these each per team, and I'm gonna send them the video. Like, listen, we talked about your team on the podcast today, so here's what 2 professionals think you should do.
I'm not a professional, but I am someone here that has some
mediocre analysts.
There we go. Not an analyst. Here's what I am, people. I want to let everyone know I'm a fantasy player that has success, that wants to give a little bit more advice out there and help out. I'm not an analyst. I'm not I'm not a professional.
Is an ex fantasy analyst.
I am just
say X, not Twitter.
I'm just a person who wants to give advice.
Fuck, who has Puka in this league?